Welcome to the Author Your Life podcast, where you can write a new script for your life and become the hero of your story. I'm your host, David McRae. You are the author of your life. Let's get started.
All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
Before we launch into the podcast, I'd like to tell you about my book, Author Your Life, Become the Hero of Your Story. This is a book for people who are at a crossroads in life and want to make a fresh start. Judging by the fact that you're listening to this podcast, I suspect that you may well be one of those people. This book is going to help you to change your narrative and rewrite the scripts in life that are holding you back. This book covers the latest science and research showing you how to become the person you want to be and live the life that you want to live. I'd like to invite you to get this book not only because I feel it's a great book that's going to help you, but also it's going to support the podcast as well. I love podcasts, but sometimes all of those ads that you get can be really irrelevant and annoying when you just want to listen to a good piece of training or a good interview. So I therefore made the decision with my podcasts that number one, I wanted my podcast to be free so that everyone could listen to it. And number two, that I wasn't going to fund it through all these annoying and irrelevant adverts and commercials. Therefore, if you want to support the podcast and support all the things that I put out there for free, whether it be here on the podcast, my YouTube channel, other areas on social media, then buying a book is going to enable and help that process. So this is what we call a win-win scenario. By buying the book, you help to support my work and all the free stuff that I put out there, and you also get a really transformational book that's going to help you make those changes that you really want in your life. So if you feel you're someone who's at that crossroads in life, you're looking for a new direction, you're looking for a fresh start, then make sure you get this book. Author Your Life, Become the Hero of Your Story is available on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and audiobook. Whatever your preferred medium, it's there for you to go get right now. Hello, story changers, and welcome back to another episode of the Author Your Life podcast. In today's episode, we have Corinna Bernasko. Corinna is a transformational coach and the founder of MANU, an online lifestyle brand for conscious and sustainable living. MANU's platform helps people adopt a conscious and sustainable lifestyle with ease, offering inspiration, online coaching programs, and highlighting sustainable companies and products. As a one-on-one coach, Corinna helps individuals tune into their higher self, create a mindful and healthy lifestyle, all while finding alignment with their deepest desires. She empowers people to create success mindfully and thus live a life of true joy and fulfillment. Her toolbox includes yoga, meditation, body wisdom, nature connection, habit building, mindfulness, shadow work, and much more. MANU was birthed through a combination of these passions. The passion for higher consciousness and personal growth, and the passion for nature and sustainability. She sees a clear interconnectedness between the evolution of consciousness, through mindfulness, and creating a sustainable earth. Change starts with the individual, with loving and taking care of oneself. As we do so, and as we unravel the societal wounds and stigma, we will inevitably create a deep care for and find realignment with all things. Her ultimate vision is for all beings to live in bliss and harmony with all of nature. In this interview, you will learn the surprising lessons that come from drinking alcohol, how to mindfully confront your fears, how to find forgiveness for yourself, and that in order to change others, you have to be the example of that change. Now, as a further footnote, MANU is currently creating its first beta online program. You can help shape the program and become part of the Easy Access VIP group by participating in a short survey. The link to that will be in the episode show notes. And on top of this, for all Author Your Life listeners, that's you, Corinna is offering a free introductory coaching call, helping you find clarity on your goals, pinpoint what is holding you back, and the next steps to move you forward. You can sign up for the free Awaken Your Potential Discovery call, which is a $350 value So guys, make sure you get on this. You can book that call with Corinna again by clicking the link which is in the show notes. Without any further preamble, please enjoy this conversation with Corinna Bernasko. Corinna, welcome to the Author Your Life podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So Corinna, I always like to start off these conversations by delving a little bit into the person I'm speaking to and finding out about some of their journey, some of their why, some of their motivation. What is the story that has brought them to where we are right now having this conversation? I'd like to ask the same of you. What has your journey been to get you to where you are now and indeed doing the work that you are doing right now?
It's been the journey of my whole life, really. I live now in California. I grew up in Germany, and it was really, the first thing that comes up when you ask that is a few key moments in life. One of them being when all of a sudden, kind of in a whim, I felt like in high school, oh, I want to go and improve my English and go abroad, when I thought that was never really something I would want to leave my home, my family. That sounded crazy when I was 18 years old, to leave for a year. Little did you know, a year later, and as I was making jokes about, oh, I'm going to end up in California and I'm never going to come back, that's exactly what happened. So be careful what you joke with. Yeah, so living here, studied here, and the journey of having to, that's really a key component of my journey, is having to falling in love with this place, Santa Barbara, that I live at right now still, and I've lived for 11 years. And having to make it happen, having to really hustle to be able to be here, to study here as a foreigner, and to live here, and going through all the hardships. So it really woke up my willpower and that perseverance that I didn't even know I had beforehand. And really this taught me, even though as difficult as it was, that I can do anything. The fact that I was able to make it here and that I'm still here, and now I'm working on my own business, partially thanks to that, lesson of I can do anything, I just need to do it. Really, that's really what it comes down to, is you just gotta do it. And that's really, you gotta start, and oftentimes it doesn't end up exactly the way you thought. Like I thought I would, go on and study in San Diego a few years ago, and then life put some hurdles in the way. Like sometimes there's things that are sort of out of our control, and all of a sudden this opportunity in Santa Barbara opened up that I didn't even look at beforehand, to continue my school here. And yeah, so I'm still here, and working on a lifestyle brand to promote conscious and sustainable living. That's really another aspect of it, is that I've been on a journey of living healthy since I was 16 years old, and I'm really tracing that back to my family history, and my parents maybe not being the most healthy people, having been chain smokers, my dad having passed away 3 years ago, actually from cancer and all that. And that really led me down this path of starting off with working out at the gym and doing the weight lift stuff. And I was really a gym nut. I was crazy, 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, working out, sometimes twice a day. And just going through the different progressions of different workouts and trying all the things, doing CrossFit for a little bit, and always dancing, a lot of dancing, and which ultimately led me to yoga. Really, which to me is the holistic, the full spectrum of health, because looks at the physical, it looks at the mental, it looks at the spiritual, it looks at the, really what drew me to it was the aspect of higher consciousness. And again, that was one of those like spark moments where all of a sudden one day, I don't even know where it came from. I had this flea in my head or whatever about, oh, we're more than this physical stuff. Like, we're energy. There's something else. And, I was led to these conversations with a friend who then educated me. Oh, that's what yoga is about. That's really what the philosophy of yoga is, what they're teaching, the lifestyle aspect. And I looked at him and I was like, really? I thought it was just about stretching. What are you talking about? That was my impression of what it was, back in the day when in my gym days, and I tried that yoga class in the gym. And I'm like, what is this? What am I doing here? I can do this stretching on my own. And that really led me back to studying yoga more in depth. And so all that is really part of what I do now, and mindfulness being a huge aspect of what I believe true health is, and the true health of the planet. And really the other important piece is that I've always had such a deep connection and care for nature. It's like recently somebody asked me or told me, what is it that you want to do with your life? Ask yourself what it is that you wanted to do when you were 5 years old. Which really is the time before any of the cultural conditioning comes in, right? It's before you go to school, before people tell you what you're good in and what you're supposed to be doing and all that. And it does trace back for me to, like my first memories being about looking at the organization WWF, the Wildlife Care Fund. And I was really passionate about protecting endangered species. That's one of my first memories, just like this deep connection to protecting animals and the planet. And that again is being connected with mindfulness, really teaching us how we are connected to that natural world. And through mindfulness and through yoga, I've really opened up these channels again of really letting myself feel everything. Where, beforehand, I feel like I was so shut down. I had so many blocks from, protecting myself from the dangers of society and whatnot without even really knowing, and to a certain degree, they say in shadow work. And so, that's really our protector, the ego part that makes sure that we survive. And it does serve a purpose, especially early on in life. And it's almost like, I literally just read about this yesterday from an Ayurvedic perspective. It's like once we reach adulthood, it becomes about kind of dismantling that part because we don't really need it anymore. So yeah, that's what I got on that.
So it's been a long and varied journey to this point, Corinna. The first thing that I wanted to touch upon, so you talked about growing up in Germany and your childhood in Germany, and where you are now not being at all what you might have imagined when you were that age. What would you say are some defining differences between who you were growing up in Germany and this new maturity and adulthood that you found moving over to California?
That's such an interesting question. Because obviously, I would say I'm a completely different person. That was me, teenage self. And one of the things that was really defining then for me is that I was bullied a lot in school, and that's still something that I'm dismantling now. It keeps popping up, and that's like one of the big messages I have there for people is that bullying does things like on a very like subconscious level that one is not aware of, or a lot of people don't ever get aware of, like how much impact it has on the psyche. So I would say that I was very shy actually until, and I just had this conversation with someone else, until I was about like 14 years old. I had a hard time speaking to my classmates. I remember times when I would drive home with the public transportation in Germany, and there was this one guy that I really liked, and just like the group of people that would drive home the same direction, and I would just be quiet. And in my head, I was like, oh, I could say this, but maybe, and it would never come out. The words would not come out. It's wild to think back at that time to where now I'm just like, speak. Like, there's no barrier as far as that goes anymore. Like, I mean, I like to take sometimes my time in new groups and really kind of observe and what's going on, like also from a mindfulness perspective, really take your time before you express yourself, right? So there's something to be said about that. But yeah, I mean, really, it's that confidence aspect. I think really having gained an immense level of confidence and being empowered in my abilities. And like the other story of that I like to tell is this story of mediocrity or being average. And I just feel like I grew up, I was kind of okay in school. I wasn't like really amazing in any subject. And funny enough, English was one of my worsts. And here I am now, English being
Pretty
actually
good.
prefer English over German these days. Yes. So, which comes back to, you can really turn your weaknesses into your strengths. It is absolutely possible, and that happens like quite a lot if you go for what you desire, what you feel inside you boiling. And yeah, just stepping away from this like story of feeling like I'm just average or I can just do okay in everything, to owning up to the power that I have, and realizing that I can create whatever it is that I set my mind to, um, and just kind of deciding. And then it's about just doing and practicing. And yeah, so those are a couple things.
Mhm. What do you think helped you make that transition in terms of your social confidence? I was speaking to someone, I was doing some mentorship with them, and what they're currently working on is being more confident in social interactions. They experience a lot of social anxiety. And this is something that I find difficult to help people with, being a natural extrovert, because a lot of this stuff just kind of comes to me, and I've worked on it and I've improved it, but there was a certain base level that was already there. It's easier to build something that's already there than to create something that's not there in the first place, or is very hard to kind of notice, recognize, find. What do you think, if you can pin it down to anything, was something that helped you make that switch and make that transition?
When I was a teenager, I don't know if this is a story you really want to have on your podcast, but here we are. All right, I'm just gonna say it. I think it's a good place. I have to say that partially what got me out of that space was actually alcohol. It sounds funny, but I would say, and just like being clear, like right now I don't drink any alcohol whatsoever. But back in the day, and I was young, I was 14 years, and it's kind of the thing that teenagers do. It's just that like first initial experience of being a little tipsy, actually, like it opens you up to being more out there, and just being more loose, and right. And what that did for me afterwards is that I realized, wow, like I can speak, and I can be fine, and nobody is gonna judge me or anything. So it was really just this aha, this moment that made something in my head click, and from then I just didn't go back. So this shit by
So everyone
no
should
means
just get
an
drunk.
advertising for, because so this is the other aspect, right? I think that all these like things, including alcohol or spirits, can play a role in showing us something that we haven't seen, because they alter our consciousness, they alter
Yeah.
our state. But it becomes an issue when people become dependent on that substance to be able to reach that state. Can you take the lesson of what you learned from it and then integrate it into your life? So that's really what it is about. Um, so if you don't want to, go that route, another thing is that actually I've recently dealt with social anxiety again, and here I am now. I'm such a social butterfly. I'm an extrovert too, although I found kind of a balance now. I think that we really both have both, and we need both. Now, I went through a phase of really experiencing, after some like personal challenges, and really like my first big kind of failure experience, and of having all of a sudden social anxiety in social situations. And really, the thing that helps the most, and that I recommend to everyone now, is mindfulness. It all comes back to mindfulness, and actually, this is a strategy I learned that kind of puts it into practice, by a book called Dare. So there's like so whatever situation that triggers the anxiety, it's really important to still go for it. Like if you start hiding from it, it's gonna start controlling your life. And so you gotta go into that situation that triggers it and let it come up. So all that anxiety really is us fighting the stress and the fear and all the like so quote unquote bad feelings that a situation bring up. So by us trying to suppress it, and it creates this anxiety because it gets really stuck in our body, or we are judging ourselves for feeling a certain way. So what you do instead is you say, whatever, this is happening. It's cool. I know how to deal with this now. So what? Who cares? Like, I can do this. I've done this. Look at my past. I've been in this situation hundreds of times and I've made it through. Step one. Step two, tell yourself that you accept it, that you accept those feelings that are coming up. And, I like to add in there that I love myself with those feelings. So you really just like, you kind of let your barriers, your walls down. And as you do that, you feel sort of the melting in your body already happening. And then the first step is to really invite it in, to even, especially if the situation is really extreme, if it brings up even potentially panic attacks, you run towards it, you invite it, you're like, great, be here, and, get excited. And in the sense, for me, what I'm adding in there is to be excited to see it so that you can work through it, to use it as a chance to let whatever fears, whatever insecurities you have come up, so that your heart can literally work through it. And really like tuning into your heart, because this is really like the power, the strength of our heart. Our heart works through our emotions, and to let ourselves feel whatever comes up. Yeah, that's really it.
Nice.
That's worth gold.
So something else I wanted to kind of run into is the common story that unites both of us. Both of us have lost our dads to cancer at a relatively young age, and I think for both of us, that has been a catalyst that's driven on a lot of the work that we do and a lot of the perspective and purpose that we have in our lives. Would you like to talk a little bit more about that experience, the things that came up for you, the lessons that you learned, and tell us a little bit more about your dad?
Sure. So where to start there? So like I said, he passed away about 3 years ago, and it's really like a story of, like I said, it was lung cancer, so it's traced back to the chain smoking, but really to me it comes down to childhood trauma that he experienced that he was not able to clear up and really heal from. And I know that was really tough for him at the end of his life. A lot of this stuff came up. Some of the things he was able to, dissolve. That's, what these situations sometimes do for people, right? In sort of like the most positive way you could look at. And I grew up thinking already as a teenager, mentally preparing myself. Like, I don't know how long my parents are going to be around, but the way that they're smoking and all that. So it was interesting, when I heard the message that he actually had a stroke, and then because of that stroke, they found the cancer, and he recovered pretty well from the stroke, but then it was the cancer is really the thing that took things over. And I was not even all that shocked when I got that message because of that, mental preparation. It was kind of that, again, this like protective mechanism, right, of our bodies. And so, and one of the perhaps sadder parts of the story is that because I was living here, and cancer is so unpredictable, it all happened, at the end really fast, and I wasn't able to say bye to my dad. So, and that's something, that I had to continuously tune in with myself and make sure that I can forgive myself for that, or that there's no resentment. So, that's a huge aspect, I think, of that journey, is to like tune into ourselves and forgive ourselves for whatever parts are coming up, and just being really gentle with the process of healing and grieving. And it can come up years later suddenly, and then just giving it space and having that emotional intelligence again to like let things really come up as they come up. And what else?
There's something you brought up right there, talking about not having the opportunity to say goodbye. When I share the story of my dad, one of my books is called The Last 60 Minutes. And the whole story came about was because I was with my dad. I actually arrived at his bedside 60 minutes before he passed away. I was there with him for the last hour of his life. And I think the trajectory of what I've learned and realized has been different because I was there with him in his final moments. And so when I'm on stage and I'm sharing the story and I'm talking to people, when people come up to me afterwards, there's always a me too in the audience. There's always somebody who's been through something very similar. And the two stories that I hear are, "Hi, David, just want to say, thanks for what you spoke about today. Just like you, I had an experience with a loved one, a friend, whoever it is. And just like you, I had the opportunity to say goodbye, and I'm forever thankful and grateful for it." And then I'll have the other person who will come up and say, "Hi, David, really resonated with what you were speaking about today. Just like you, I lost a loved one, I lost a friend. But unlike you, I didn't have that chance to say goodbye. I just missed it, or I just left, or I didn't get there in time. And I've regretted it ever since, and there's been a part of me that's never been able to fully heal." So I hear that second version of the story quite a lot, and that's a version of the story that you went through. When you talked about this process of forgiving yourself and letting go, what has that process looked like for you that some of those people who have the story just like yourself, could use to help them move through a grieving process? It doesn't have to be losing someone. There's different grieving processes that we have. It doesn't have to be a person dying. What would be your process that you would help them through?
Yeah, forgiveness is an interesting one. It kind of takes some, like some really exploring and continuing to really kind of study the subject to kind of get it. It's a hard one to really explain, and it's something that ultimately, like, when you know, you know. So the advice that I have for that is, in general, it doesn't just come to these extreme situations, to have a practice of forgiving yourself really all the time. I don't necessarily do it, although I do it almost every day as I go to sleep, right? I go through kind of my day, and as things come up, you know, that didn't go the way that I wanted, or a person showed up, or something came up, and I just tell myself then, before going to sleep, oh, I'm just human. I'm doing the best that I can. I forgive myself for what that was. And so that's really, I think, a huge piece of it, is having that consistency. And I'm lucky enough that I'm in a conscious community where these things kind of come up all the time. Where we might be in a circle and we play the song. There's a Hawaiian forgiveness song, so that's a really good one that one can sing to themselves. It's basically saying, please forgive me, I thank you, I love you. So it's all those things, because within these challenges, or within these things that we're experiencing, it's also usually one of our biggest lessons to learn from. And there's usually also both sides, so we have to forgive ourselves as well as the other person. And ultimately, forgiveness always comes back around to being about ourselves and not being about the other person. So that's something else to really, really understand, is that we're doing it to ourselves if we're not forgiving ourselves. If you look at the word, it's basically, it's got the word to give in it.
Yeah.
So I think it's all about giving to ourselves. And yeah, so that's some of the little bits I have on that.
How do you think you've changed as a result of losing your dad?
So I was already sort of, on that journey of yoga and deeper diving into myself, but I think it kind of catapulted things forward. And because I remember the moment when I got the message that he had passed, and it was kind of that similar situation. I thought that I would be able to maybe fly there and say goodbye. Space of complete, utterly presence. I was so aware and conscious and focused, and it was interesting. And I just think that whole experience made me really even more aware of what else there's to life, and to really explore myself deeper. And I think that, I do think a lot that having that experience of death in my life, one of the things that I'm grateful for is that I know oh, it's actually real. So it's really this reality check of, okay, this is actually happening. And wow, one day, the people that brought you up, that made you who you are all of a sudden just gone. And I think it's it still unfolds now, as I am growing and really doing my own self-healing, and doing a lot of forgiveness the other way around too, forgiving my dad. There's a lot of that, even though he's not around anymore. Literally just a couple of weeks ago, I went through this breathwork journey, and it was all about forgiving the divine masculine, and all this stuff came up, and really forgiving my dad, and continuously doing it. So it's it's not a one time and you're done with it kind of deal. And just being, more gentle, and it's making me more of a gentle, caring, compassionate being, really, by the day, I feel like. And just now, it hitting more and more of like, wow, like I won't be able to have that conversation with my dad of being like, wow, I understand what he went through. I understand that he did the best that he could, and being able to share the tools that I have that he didn't have for his healing, So, but then also to just having to accept what is, and being thankful for the lessons that are in that. Yeah. So I think just being more grateful for life and for everything that we have is a big one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of this catalyst and some of this journey that's developing now. Can you tell us a little bit more about your big projects at the moment and what that's all about and what you're looking to bring into the world?
Yes, I love talking about it. So there's really, two aspects to it. So the big one is MANU. It's the lifestyle brand for really promoting conscious and sustainable living and making it easy and accessible for everyone to adopt this lifestyle. And it's really a lifestyle of kind of looking at yourself first and taking care of yourself first in order to take care of the planet. So it's both aspects, right? Because I see in both directions some issues. I see a lot of quote unquote conscious people who are not really still taking the steps and living more sustainably for the planet. And I see a lot of people who, are really the advocates for the earth, and they're fighting for it, but they're not really necessarily taking care of themselves as much as they should. And it really comes down to doing both, to being able to be that whole self. And so it's like it's spreading all these messages around that what we're seeing in our world today is really an outcome of how we have been feeling internally as a species for the last hundreds of years. And so it really becomes about, truly, the healing of the earth becomes about the healing and the uplifting of the human consciousness, I believe. And yes, I love the combination of sustainability and and my passion for nature, and combining that with higher consciousness and what humans are capable of. And I think that we've been so long in this culture of oppressor versus the oppressed, and it like a big part of it is for people to like come out of that space, to not be the oppressed anymore, because it takes somebody who is willing to be oppressed to have an oppressor. So that it's both sides play a piece in it. So people really have to step it up. And so it becomes about empowerment and taking responsibility for your own life and for your choices. And when taking responsibility comes power, and it can be positive power. Like everything by itself is neutral, and it's like, what are we making out of it? And the other aspect of it is really by taking care of ourselves and really understanding the consciousness aspect is that we are all part of the same organism, of the same universe, of the same planet. So whatever we're doing to ourselves, we're ultimately doing to the planet. And it has that ripple of impact. And you can decide if your ripple of impact is going to be positive or negative. It's going to like damage the world, or if it's going to make it better. And so it's some of these like messages of really understanding kind of on a consciousness level of what this is all about, and then also really giving people the practical tools to adopt that lifestyle. So partially what I'm working on right now, what we're working on is creating an online program for people to to help people adopt that lifestyle with ease. And that includes things like, well, how do I take better care of myself, and how do I eat healthier? And the great thing is that usually, the stuff that is better for ourselves naturally is also better for the planet. So eating healthier, going to your local farmers markets, whatever, is the best choice you can make for the planet, because the food is grown right there, so it doesn't need to be transported all across the planet, right? And you're supporting the local people around you, so you're building community and all that. And usually that stuff also comes in no packaging or very little packaging. And so it's got these little aspects, and so doing things better for you are also better for the planet. And then it is also a part of it is then how do we adopt better habits, like this lifestyle. So that's kind of the first, that's kind of like the biggest hurdle, getting away from processed foods, packaged foods, whatever. And then there's really not all that much left to do as far as avoiding plastic packaging and all that. You go to the store and get bulk items and things like that, and really making it easy for people to see a way through, because that's another huge piece, is that the solutions are already all here. So, and it's about really promoting the positive and staying in the positive, because if we are getting into a space of doomsday, that's exactly what we're going to create, right? Because then we're acting out of that state of consciousness that is fear-driven. So another huge aspect of living sustainably and living consciously is really adopting a lifestyle and a mindset of abundance. Because the planet and the universe is abundance. And the more we can step into that, and the more we can understand that we have the power of creativity, of creating more inside of ourselves, the more we will see that, the more that people will step into their gifts and really share what they have with the world. And it's just this this natural cycle of give and take, of creating and creating more. So the more that you create, the more there is for all. That's one of my mantras, actually.
I like it. Nice.
Yeah. And so that's really that's the big project, and then I'm also a coach, a mindful living coach, and helping people, one-on-one adopt this lifestyle and living healthy in whatever way that they're finding themselves stuck. Might be habits, it might be, a huge aspect, I think, is that we all should create our own mindfulness practice of some sort, and it could be better human for myself as well as for the planet. And that, is called, my name for that is Magic Indigo Ventures. Yes. So that's me personally. And then MANU is really the creation that comes out of that the tribe, the communal aspect, and really bringing more people together and creating something bigger, something that I want to be able to leave for the world.
I'm glad that with this you focus on the individual and the collective. Okay, I think you need both. I think both are important. So I'd like to focus on each of them a little bit more. First, with the individual, what do you do on a day-to-day basis or a regular basis to help you to be a better person and to be a better individual? You've talked about a few things already so far in this conversation, but is there anything else that you haven't mentioned that you'd like to share and you think is important?
Sure. Yes. I mean, I think the easiest way is to go with, and just to let people know, this has been an evolution of 4 or 5 years of doing this work and this practice. So it took some time to get to this point. I wake up, the first thoughts that I trained myself to have is that I am grateful to be alive, that I'm grateful to have this day. And then I asked myself a couple of questions immediately, because as you may notice, the brain starts going right away.
Yeah.
What am I doing today? Oh, I don't like this. Whatever the thought patterns are. So instead of letting the mind just run with it, take control of what you want to put in your mind first thing when you wake up. It will also make you more excited about getting up in the morning. So I ask myself, what do I love about myself and what do I love about my life? And I do that while I brush my teeth. And then I go on and do my meditation practice, which has a few different layers of breath work, of filling myself up with white lights, to thinking, to then just doing more of a true meditation, and then visualizing. So that's a huge tool for me. Visualizing my future, visualizing, thinking of 3 things that I want to create that day, setting an intention for the day, and visualizing myself 5 years into the future. So that's, immensely powerful as far as manifestation goes. But there's a lot of, subtleties to it. You can't get too attached to your vision or be too future driven, because then you find yourself constantly in the future, which creates anxiety. So it's really just meant to be a tool and meant to like get you into this higher vibrational state of being. And then I do my yoga practice. And so that's kind of what I do every day in the morning before I really even do anything else. And then eating really healthy breakfast, with a bunch of superfoods in it. I've got my chia seed pudding that I make on myself, and like it's all these little things. I make my own hemp milk so that I avoid buying any packaged milks or even, milk that are coming from animals for environmental reasons. So it's all these little things that just start adding up, and then just having constant reminders. I throughout the day do my breath work multiple times. So there was a time when I did it more like, okay, I'm doing it every hour, or I had to set myself reminders. Now it kind of happens every time I get into the car automatically. I don't even have to think about it. And I listen to a lot of audiobooks of inspirational teachers, personal growth. Um, that's a huge aspect. And exercise is hugely important. Running, dancing, whatever that is for oneself. That is huge. And the other thing is, on the other end, is to balance that out. This is one that I really have had to learn and have to be very consciously doing myself, meaning to slow down and to take a break, to do maybe the restorative yoga instead of the level 2 sweaty yoga class
Yeah.
all the time. And especially the type of person that is a go-getter and wants to achieve things. And it just depends on your body type too, of what you fall into naturally. You got to balance it out, because otherwise you're going to end up in some kind of extreme that isn't healthy. And yeah, and really taking time to listen to what those needs are. I spend a lot of time in nature too. Pretty much every weekend now. I definitely feel I need that nature connection, and nature really just grounds me and clears me. It clears everything. Yeah.
Mhm. So that's several good recommendations for the
That
individual.
wasn't even everything. I'm like, I better stop here.
No, it's all good stuff. What are your recommendations for the collective? How do we enhance and improve the collective as well as the individual?
By looking at yourself. It comes back to yourself. Being the example is the most powerful thing that any human can do. If you start by looking outside yourself of what you can do outside, you've already sort of lost. if you haven't taken care of yourself. So do you have a practice that keeps you happy and healthy and self-loving? Once you have that established, then you can start looking at, wow, what is it that I want to create? How can I do something bigger for the world? And how can what I'm already doing be beneficial, right? And, in that sense, going back to your question, it then becomes about, cool, like, I'm feeling so good myself and I feel called to create this business, or I want to offer this class and I want to teach other people about what I am doing, or just being, even alone, going out and being that happy, healthy self that you are, and going to social gatherings and staying fully present with being that person and not falling into that mindset of maybe the collective that you're in that given situation has a huge impact. I can tell you, for example, that ever since I fully opened up my flow for dancing and really let all the layers go of, oh, what if someone is watching me, blah, 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 blah. People started coming up to me and telling me how amazing of a dancer I am, and they're just inspired, and there's other people around me that catch on, so it catches on. That's sort of where I don't really like to use the term, but the law of attraction is just the natural law of whatever we put out is what we get back.
Yeah. So I'd like to start bringing all of our ideas in together and start to round off and close off this conversation. I've got a few final questions to do so. But I always say to my guests, just because these are the final questions, don't feel that you need to give short, succinct answers. You can give long, elaborate answers that are just as long as the entire rest of the conversation if you feel it's appropriate. And the first of these questions is a nice simple one. You touched upon one of the things that you do. In fact, the first thing that you do when you wake up is you think about what you're grateful for. So my question to you is, what are you grateful for today?
The first thing that always comes is that I'm grateful for this moment, whatever the moment is. I really am. So I'm always grateful for that. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to be on your podcast and to share, whatever I have to share with other people. I am grateful that the sun is out finally in California. It's been gloomy, believe it or not. It's been gloomy and cold. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for all the amazing humans in my life and for really everything. To sum it up.
Earlier on in the conversation, you were talking about rediscovering your 5-year-old's passion, finding out what you truly wanted to be as a child before the conditioning and the stories and the scripts get layered on top. I think the next century is going to be a very important one. And if we look at the 21st century, the people who are really going to inherit it are the children and the young people right now. The generation even just before us in the kind of millennial category. If you had that 5-year-old before you, as you said, without any of the conditioning, without any of the stories, without any of the scripts that so many of us build up as we get older, what advice would you be giving to that child to help them to make the most of themselves and to make the most of their life throughout the rest of the 21st century?
I would tell that 5-year-old that it's okay to go through whatever you're going through, and that you'll be fine. You'll be fine, and you'll come out stronger on the other side, and to, continue exploring herself staying true to herself and following that. And to really, on a grander scale, to love everything and everyone, that is really the answer to all the issues that we're facing.
So to move from the beginning of life to the end of life, we've talked a little bit about death and endings in today's conversation. And I'd like you to fast forward ahead to your last day, that last day that we're all going to have at some point. And when you're there and you look back on your life, what legacy do you want to have left during your time on Earth?
Just knowing that I left this place a little better than I found it. At least that. And I am going for something much grander and greater than that, but if it ultimately is going to happen and play out that way, is left for the unknown, for the universe to really decide and my own journey to unfold. And I think that this journey of starting your own business and doing these grand things is also a journey of being ultimately deeply humbled and deeply understanding that, yes, we have a powerful impact, and yet it's just a small piece of the puzzle, right? So we all need to play our parts, and as long as I played mine, and as long as I was, stayed true to myself, true to my morals and beliefs of what I think is right and what is, good, then, I think that I'm happy with that. Yeah.
So Corinna, for folks who've been listening to this conversation and they want to find out a little bit more about you, about the work that you're doing, where would you point people to find out more information about all of the projects and all of the ideas that you've been discussing?
Yes. So I would love everyone to go to MANU.tribe on Instagram. So that's MANU.TRIBE. And right now we are actually collecting data, information from people who want to live a more conscious and sustainable life, to hear from them what they need. Because the program that we're creating is a program that is created basically, by the people and for the people. So there's a questionnaire in our bio right now that people can fill out and tell us about what it is that they need. What is it that you need? And then let us create it so that we can really help the most people. So that's the most important piece that people can do. And if people are interested in working one-on-one or following my personal journey, then follow my Instagram. It's at Magic Indigo Ventures. All together. Yeah.
Nice. Well, Corinna, I'd just like to thank you for this conversation today. I've enjoyed your conscious thinking, and I've enjoyed your forthright energy and your willingness to delve into lots of different topics and discuss lots of different aspects about your life and about your vision and about your work. So I'd like to thank you for bringing all of these qualities into our conversations today.
Yes, thank you so much as well for, spreading so many good messages and empowering messages for people and inspiring so many with your podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate it hugely if you could head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review for the podcast. With your review, please be as honest and detailed as you can be, because with honest and detailed feedback, that helps me to adapt and grow this podcast to most serve you, the listener. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, then make sure you subscribe to the podcast That way you aren't going to miss any of the future episodes that we've got lined up for you. Until next time, remember that you are the author of your life. You hold the pen, and you can write whatever script you want for yourself. So go out today and write yourself a beautiful story.